which is today's Tuesday, right? Because you had your
Yep.
nautical net this morning. Anyway, over New Zealand, we see a high centered over the southern South Island. It's about 1029 central pressure, give or take. Then we've got a depression that's centered 30 south and the dateline. And this depression runs a quasi-stationary front. Well, it goes sort of eastward, then extends to another frontal band, which changes course and goes northwest to Fiji. And another trough from this low, runs from 30 and the dateline west to about 28 south and 175 east. And then it extends in a little bit of an arc to about 32 south and 168 east. Now, I'm sure you've all copied this down. Anyway, there is, however, a squash zone between the low center that I gave you earlier and New Zealand, and that's the reason for the swells. There's some big waves out there, folks, really big waves. So if you must, you deal with it if you have to. Otherwise, it's certainly something to consider avoiding. But anyhow, winds, expect them to be southeast about 20 to 25 knots. Lunch Friday, which a couple more days from now, expect northeast about 15 to 20 on the rum line between New Zealand and Fiji. And by Monday the 27th, again, the date, as far as we know, is the departure date for the rally that's heading up to the Fiji area. And the winds look to be pretty mellow, actually, about southwest, about 10 knots. Certainly higher in gusts. Every time I give winds, by the way, I always give it a band. 5 knots, 5 to 8 knots, either way of whatever number I give you. And gusts are usually 50% higher. Now, by Thursday, the 30th, our next high will be in the mid-Tasman. And that's going to be providing very nice passage winds, southerly 20 knots at about 33 south and 177 east. So that's looking pretty decent for the rum line passage to Fiji. Now, the depression that we've talked about the last couple of days that appeared to arrive west of New Caledonia did not look very promising at all. It looked quite nasty, actually. And that was tending around the 30th. That looks to become absent now from the various models, which is very, very good news for those that are New Caledonia bound. The various models actually are struggling for consistency. All the more reason to monitor very closely and do it daily and more than daily. Most of them come out every 6 hours, so it pays to constantly, if you're ready to go, that is, monitor them constantly during the day and every day before you leave. Today, an active front extends from the Louisiades to Vanuatu to just south of Fiji and then onward to southern Tonga, then off to the southeastward from there. Now another trough lies north of Fiji, and it appears to be bearing away from the group. So that's good news for those of you that are in Fiji. So for Fiji itself, expect the open waters. We'll be looking at south to southeast winds, about 10 to 15 knots, increasing 15 to 20 knots, gusting 25 knots over the next day or so. And from that, Obviously expect rough seas and southerly swells. And by the weekend, I see southeast winds about 20 to 25 knots. So a little bit more breeze as the week winds up, gets into the weekend. And back to the passage analysis from New Zealand to the islands. As I said a little bit earlier, the models are all struggling with this. I look at them all. I look at EC, GFS, the French models. I look at all of the upper levels. I look at satellite imagery, and I look at the trend on satellite imagery. Anyway, all of them are varying in their progs almost daily. This time of the year, it's common, and it's very difficult for them to come to some type of a conclusion that's similar. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for these models to be fairly close in what they're progging, the prognosis of them. And we're just not getting that at the moment. So it's kind of tricky, difficult for those of you who have hired people to route you. So they certainly will be earning their money in this regard. So anyway, that's this time of the year. This is normal. So anyway, for yourself, monitor daily, even in spite of getting the routing from your routers. Do some work yourself and go from there. So be careful is the name of the game. And we will be with you again tomorrow to see what has changed, if anything. So any questions or whatever, come now.
Well, nothing heard, and I did manage to get the streaming on at the start of David's broadcast, and I will cover what I happened to say earlier on at the end once we finish with the radio. Okay, I'll just throw it open. It sounds like it's pretty cold everywhere, and good to hear that the streaming is good. I've got this new microphone that I can just swing in front of me or David, so it works really well. And I think it's coming, the boats when they call in, which will be good for when people take off, because then the folks at home that are leading them to it, particularly with this earlier rather tumultuous one, they can hear their loved ones take off and how they're dealing with it. Anyway, I see Somerset is still at Coro. Is there anybody wanting to touch base with us? Please call now. Good afternoon, Paul, and it looks like your weather is a lot better than it was yesterday, over.
Yeah, roger that. The rain did go up last night, but we're happy that it's cleared up a bit, and the water's also cleared up, so the leaving station today, really clear water. We could just about see down to 20 meters. A lot of fish just outside the reef here. And we also did our service in the village, which was very welcoming and very friendly, and that was very nice. We gave a cover, and then they gave us a lot of fruit, which was also very nice of them. Over.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's lovely to get some fresh fruit from places. It always reminds me, where were we? Oh, in River Bay somewhere. Anyway, we'd come quite a distance, and we were desperate for some fruit of some sort. And of course, you go into the one or two shops in some of these places, and they never have any fruit because everybody grows their own. So we happened to mention to a girl that had befriended us that we would really like to get some bananas. Well, they took us to a place, and she warned us that she said, you'll probably get a lot of bananas, so it's very rude not to take them all. So anyway, we got into the back garden, which of course was full of bananas, and the woman chopped off with a big machete. Honestly, it was about as tall as I was. And David looked at it and thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to carry this back to the boat. So we did carry this enormous thing back to the boat, thinking, oh well, there was another New Zealand boat there, they would take some. But sadly, when we got back to our boat and their boat, they also had a humongous pile of bananas. So we did lots of experiments to see whether we could vary the degree of ripening. We put them outside, we put them inside, we put them near the warmth of the engine, we put them in total darkness in the washing machine, we put them in all sorts of places, and well, they all ripened at the same time. So that experiment, well, I suppose it worked in a way that it did give us some information.
Even burlap bags we tried.
Burlap bags, yes, we did. We tried absolutely everything. We still had them when we got to Tahiti. Anyway, we do like banana cake, but there's only so much banana cake you can have. Anyway, is there anybody else we'll clear with? Well, I'm not sure whether. I think it was a bit complicated for me listening to Paul yesterday. I think they're going back to Sabu with their guests. But they've got lots of water, which is always good, and fish, so all is good on Somerset. Is there anybody else wanting to check in? We do have a couple of boats wanting to check their radio. I'm not sure whether they are listening at the moment. I think it was maybe Champagne or Cabana, not too sure. But Paul, if you're still there, could you just put out a call on behalf of Gulf Harbour Radio for anybody in New Zealand who wants to check out their radio and make contact? Over to you, Paul, on Somerset.
Yeah, we'll do that. This is Gulf Harbour Radio. Is there anybody else out there that wants to check in? Over.
Nothing heard. Nothing heard from me anyway.
Nothing heard, and I did check last night that I'm on high tower. Over.
Yes, you certainly are coming through extremely well. Thank you for that. I think I did hear a woman's voice. If there was somebody there, would you try again?
This is Gulf Harbour Radio. Is there anybody else wanting to check in tonight? Over.
No, nothing heard. Thank you, Paul. And I'm going to finish the transmission now. I will carry on streaming for a few minutes, seeing as I was late because of the late arrival of the other half. I will just cover a couple of things before we leave you, and we will close down the radio now and be back again tomorrow at the same time, 5:15. Did you note that? 5:15.
Is that
yes, it's
daylight savings time?
No, it's not. Okay, cheers everybody. Have a good night. And I will just, actually there wasn't too much to cover. I was just after the start, I was talking about the rather rough conditions out there in the water at the moment. Big swells, and there's still 30 to 40 knots off Opua. So it will be rather a turbulent start for those who get seasick, and I am an expert on seasickness because I always got seasick at the start of a passage. There's all sorts of things I've tried. I've tried every pill known to mankind.
Sturgeon works.
Sturgeon is the only one that worked. The Sturgeon is cynarazine, and you can get it. You can't buy it in New Zealand, but you can get it in New Caledonia, and I always used to stock up there. I think it comes under cynarazine. Vanuatu had it just as Sturgeon. But of course, no matter what you take for your seasickness, you do need to take a ton of kiwi fruit with you, because virtually all of these antihistamine type things cause constipation. So you need the kiwi fruit, and that seems to be the best thing. It's pleasant to eat, and it just does the job of balancing out the effects of the Sturgeon or whatever other else you have.
Explosive results.
There is not explosive results. The shortest day is today, believe it or not, and it is actually quite dark outside. And in America, I presume it's the longest day, and it's a holiday. And for those of you who have been away from America for some time, as we have, it is a public holiday. I heard this on the radio, and I said to David, what is the public holiday today? And he didn't have a clue. Well, it happens to be Juneteenth. And if you've never heard of Juneteenth, it is now a national holiday in America. 19th of June, but I know it's not the 19th of June, but because it comes on a Sunday, they have the Monday off, and of course they are a day behind us. So it is a public holiday, Emancipation Day, Freedom Day in America, because in June 1865, federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and gave the word to enslaved African American slaves that they were free. More than 2 years, I might add, after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So I guess things take a while to get to Texas and even longer to be implemented in Texas. But now it's a national holiday. All the states took their time to make it a holiday, and I think South Dakota was the last, and they did that earlier this year. So President Biden has now made it a national holiday. So there you have it. Sorry about the late start with the streaming, but we got there in the end. I thought, oh, there's nobody on streaming. I better have a check. And I had waited for David to come because a cord comes from this fancy new microphone over to the computer behind us. And to save him tripping over it, I wait for him to come in. And it was quite a long wait. Well, it's dark now. Cheers, everybody. We will be back again tomorrow at 5:15, and a very good start to the day if you are one of the ones that are leaving on this. It's a passage, not a bright one, but it's at least a passage to clear out of these very cold temperatures that we've got at the moment. It's only 13
few more days.
Oh, David says be patient. But boy, it's hard to be patient if you haven't got a heater on board. And this morning, even here at Gulf Harbour, it was 10 degrees outside. We have yet to get to single digits, but we're getting very, very close. Particularly, I think tomorrow, it continues to be fairly clear. It's about 70% cloud cover at the moment. We'll probably find it is rather nippy. I'm so pleased we're not doing the net at 7:15 in the morning like we used to for the first 12 years. Cheers, everybody. Have a good night. We're clear.